Hey guys, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Everlast. I have been one of the high ranked Vi mains for a long time, and I used to be the rank 1 Vi actually. But today I got a banger video which I think you're really gonna enjoy and find really useful. I hope so. I put a lot of effort into this. So I'm actually gonna run through every single one of Vi's jungle matchups and rank them in order, and so you can kind of see what it's like, make it easier for you to pick her. Uh, and also gonna give a couple of tips and tricks into every single one. This is gonna be like effective game plans into that matchup, good builds, or like small mechanical tricks that you can use to really win that matchup. And remember, this is all my opinion based on my knowledge. It's not necessarily perfect or flawless, but it have been really effective to me, and it's been good enough to beat multiple challenger junglers this season, which is really great. So I hope you're gonna find it useful. Let's go. So let's get started. We're starting off with the Amumu. It's actually not a great matchup. I don't like to play this very much, even though I'm lucky not to play against it very much because people tend to stay away from Amumu in higher elo. It's still pretty difficult because he has a lot of disruption, and that's not something Vi enjoys a lot because he can cancel your Qs, stop you from engaging, just shut you down and make sure you get one shot. I don't recommend building full damage and lethality and so on into Amumu for that reason, because it's easy to just get shut down, caught, and one shot. So it's better to build Bruiser. That also means you can beat him 1v1 the whole game pretty much if you're even. Building stuff like Sundered Sky, Black Cleaver, Triforce if you want to, Eclipse is fine, and then more tanky stuff after is what I like to do. But yeah, make sure to be careful about chasing too hard and diving too hard in if you don't see Amumu, because he has great counter engage, and if you overcommit it's going to be very scary. He also has great counter gank, so look out for that. Try to play aggressive in the early game, try to isolate him 1v1. You're gonna win if you run Conqueror or Lethal Tempo for that matter, and yeah, try to hold your ultimate to buffer CC, and also in team fights. He likes to go in, go deep. Make sure you don't get caught in the same CC as your enemy, as your backline. So your best options are either to just try to keep Amumu away from your backline as best as you can, if it's very important to protect them, or a great option can also be to counter engage on the enemy backline. So even though Amumu goes in and CC your team, try to hold back the follow-up so that they can't follow up the damage from the CC from Amumu. So you kind of just neutralize his engage the best you can. That's a great approach in team fights. Bel'Veth, it's a bit difficult matchup. You have some counterplay. You can knock her out of her E fast, so you stop the damage. She's still going to have the damage reduction, but your ultimate and your Q can stop the E damage, which is pretty big. It's very scary to go into her because she has the W to knock up your Q, and also she can easily dodge your Q with her dashes. And then if you miss your Q against Bel'Veth, you're just going to get run down and one shot. So that's very scary. But it's fine. Be very careful of her level 1 invades onto your wolves or your raptors. So make sure you look out for those. And yeah, try to not give her too many free objectives, especially the Rift Herald and the Grubs and the Rift Herald. She's going to be able to utilize those very well. And try to play more towards team fights than skirmishes. She's a bit better in skirmishes unless you can really shut her down and come from Fog of War. So in team fights you're going to be better, even though she scales well. She can't really team fight all that well. She's more about picking targets, skirmishes, creating mana advantage and so on. So Brand, I actually think this is a pretty decent matchup. Vi doesn't have a great win rate against him because I think people approach it quite poorly. What Brand has going for him into Vi is that Vi likes to go in, meanwhile Brand likes for the enemy team to come into him, because then he can use all his slows, all his damage, and just pull out all his damage and just like do a lot of AoE. But what you can do is I like to go lethality into him, because you can easily one-shot him at level 6 with Dirk, Longsword, this kind of stuff. Pick him off in a 1v1, you're going to be able to 1v1 him pretty much the whole game. Unless you go Bruiser, because then you don't necessarily have the damage. You can, of course, one-shot him. I mean 1v1 him, but it's a bit more difficult. You have Maw and Kayn, Rek'Zai, Mercs, and Swifties are great items to counter him. Also, Edge of Night can be very good if you have that option, if it's good into more champions than him, because it makes it very difficult for him to use the stun on you, because then he can't EQ you when you're engaging onto him. So that's very good. Also, it makes it harder for him to get off his passive. Okay, actually I changed my mind, so Brand is probably B tier. It's more even, you have a lot of counterplay, but let's put him in B, because so is he. Briar, I think Briar is even matchup, is skill based. She has the Q to kind of get into you. Try to use your Q to stop her Q engage, so you don't get stunned, so you both kind of get buffer, because she wants to do as much damage as possible in her W. So when she leaps onto you and activates W, try to knock her and then kite her, and then try to fight her later. In the 1v1, you can also, it's very smart to use your ultimate to stop her E, the knockback, and also try to not waste too much of your abilities and burst into the E, because it's heavily damage reduction, right? So that's a big deal. Also, when she uses her ultimate onto other targets, or you even, try to alter on the way, so that, but try to alter as late as possible, because if you just grab her while she's traveling, she's not going to be CC'd, she's unstoppable. But try to time it so that when she, for example, hits ultimate on your ADC, alter late, so that you're able to CC her right after she's out of her dash, but also so you don't get feared, so you can actually help your team, because if you just get stuck waiting there, it's very difficult, and also the range of the fear is quite large, so it's longer than your Q range. So I recommend you using your ultimate to counter the fear, and also CC her while she tries to burst your carries. You can also easily invade her, because she's stuck hitting the camps with her W, so she can't dodge your Q either, which is very nice when you're invading. Diana, it's a very free matchup in my opinion. It's quite easy. You beat her 1v1 pretty much the whole time, unless you're behind. You can invade her early game. She's very predictable in her pathing usually, so you can try to attack her at either buff camp, in my opinion, on the first clear. I like to do that if you have the prio, or at least some sort of prio. You can do a lot of builds, but I prefer to go lethality, or at least like Eclipse, Black Cleaver, quite damage heavy. You can always use by Maw to counter her, which is great, because then you're never going to lose 1v1. You have too much MR, too much shield, so that's a great option. So that's pretty much it. She's very predictable. Don't let her AFK farm. Try to invade her, bully her, try to disrupt her full clearing. Ekko. It's also it's a good matchup in my opinion. It's not like insane, but it's pretty good. You can shut him down early. He's very weak. You can try to invade him in the same way. He likes to scale up, so you have way more pressure in the early game. Try to counter gank. Whoever gets a counter gank usually wins in this matchup, because he is W. If you see you go in, he can probably get a big stun, but if he goes into you, you can do the same to the enemy. So try to look for counter ganks, try to invade him. In a 1v1, what you want to do is try to, after you get your ultimate, try to use your Q to engage, try to hit him low, and then when your Q is about to get back up, then you can ult him, and then follow with the Q auto E, and then if that's enough for the kill, that's a great timing to use your ultimate. So you don't want to Q alt go all out unless you know you have the team to actually follow up and one-shot him before he can use his ultimate. You mostly want to Q him, hitting down a bit until you know he wants to ult, but you ult him right before that, and you're able to kill him before you can use it with the CC chain. You also have Maw, which is great against Ekko. So Elise, I don't like this matchup. It's like hard or / horrible. It's not great. You can beat her, of course. I recommend going Bruiser in this matchup. She can easily one-shot you from bushes, catch you all the time, and it's very difficult to one-shot her, or at least catch her, because she has to repel, right? And that's pretty difficult to deal with. She usually also buys Hourglass, which is pretty annoying. So in this matchup, what you want to do is just try to neutralize her early game as best as you can. Try to track her well, ping for your team, try to really help them out, use wards. If you can try to neutralize and make the game even into like 15 minutes, more team fights, you're going to be way more valuable than her. So that's pretty much how you want to approach. Try to either counter her dives or like try to protect dives, or play the opposite side of the map. So you can she tries to play for your bot and you're a bit weaker in the 3v3, 2v2. Try to attack the opposite side, try to keep the game even as long as possible, and then you're going to win out in team fights later. Evelynn. It's a good matchup. I like this. You can try to invade her a lot. You can she usually likes to full clear, which you can punish. She's quite predictable on that end. Try to punish her before level 6. She gets stronger and stronger. Also try to get down objectives as much as you can. She has very low pressure in the early game, so you can try to really accelerate the game with the grubs, with the dragons. If you can get those stacked up early, it makes it way more difficult, because then she's forced to team fight over those important objectives sooner than she likes, and then you're gonna have more value and also put a clock on the game. So if you have stacked up 3 dragons very early, you force the enemy team to group, which is great, because then Evelynn can't constantly pick people off. So try to focus around objectives in this matchup. You can easily, she one-shot her, try to shut her down in team fights, which is really smart. So Fiddlesticks. It's a even matchup, I think. You both kind of counter each other. You both want to engage, but if you engage, it's very scary with the counter engage. What you have going for you is that you should try to interrupt his drain, his W, very early, and try to CC that with your Q or your ultimate. So try to hold one of them for that ability, because if you do, he doesn't get to reset a cooldown, which makes him pretty useless in the 1v1 or 2v2, this kind of stuff. So, and also be very careful of engaging into the enemy team without having vision on Fiddlesticks. That can be just game losing on its own. So that's something you want to be careful of. Edge of Night can be great, because then it doesn't get the fear on this first spell. Mercs is always a great option, and before objectives and team fights, always try to locate Fiddlesticks. That's how you really want to play against him, because his ultimate is like pretty much the whole most important ability in pretty much any team fight. He's very scary on that regard, but if you can locate him and maybe pick on him, make a pick on him, and engage on him before he can use the engage or counter engage, it's going to be very easy for your team to play the rest of the team fight. So Gragas, he's a pretty difficult champion to play against, like in general, but in the jungle it's fine, because you clear faster, you can have more pressure, you can fight him 1v1 quite easily, especially when you get your ultimate to cancel a lot of the CC, and he has very long cooldowns in the early game, so if you do invade him, you're gonna be able to 1v1 him very easily. You can use Edge of Night, it's quite good in this matchup. Mo is always great, Mercs is always great, so he also don't like to do objectives in the early game. He likes to farm a bit and then go for ganks. So try to counter gank, try to play for objectives, take those 3 dragons, because he's gonna probably ignore those. So that's kind of how you want to approach it. Graves. Graves is a skill matchup. To me, it's kind of like he has the early game advantage in the first couple of levels before you get level 6, and then you have the advantage until like late game, because late game, everybody knows Graves is very difficult to play against. What you do have going for you is that you have great like CC and shutdown in team fights, so if he has a problem, you can easily like shut him down. But be very careful of early invades, level 1 invades. He can do red buff into and invade. He's very scary. You need to be very careful. Be careful how you kite your camps when you're clearing the jungle, because he can always be there to invade. Also, try not to leave too much of your camps alive when you go for ganks, because if he's allowed to just full clear, AFK farm, and you go for invade for ganks, even if you get a kill, if he can take your whole like bot side or top side, this kind of stuff, it's not like a great trade, because he's just going to be accelerated and accelerated. So unless your team can really carry, it's going to be quite scary later into the game. So be careful of that. Try to shut him down. Be very careful of fighting him when he has his grit stacked up. He's going to have way too much armor for you to fight him 1v1. So that's pretty much it. Try to bait out his E when you're trying to Q him. Don't try to Q him if you know he has the dash up, because he's just going to dodge it, and then you're going to get run down. So, Gwen. It's a good matchup. She's very weak in the early game. She's like fine in 1v1, but she has very poor ganks. She has like ghosts and can try to run on people, but she can't really CC people before level 6 at least. Then she has a little bit of a slow and a bit more damage, some range damage, this kind of stuff, but she's very weak the first couple of levels. She can't really do much. Try to invade her, try to bully her, try to accelerate the game, put the pressure on her enemy lanes, so that she's forced to respond in some regard, so she can't like AFK farm because her team falls behind. Also try to secure objectives to really accelerate the game. Don't let her like full clear and then do grubs. It's just going to be a GG. She's way too accelerated, too much XP. It's going to be very difficult, so try to put the tempo up. I like to play full damage Vi into her, actually. You can go like Eclipse Black Cleaver, but I recommend going more damage heavy. You can easily one-shot her, at least like really burst her down in team fight, so she can't take over. Just CC, one-shot, and it's a free team fight. Hecarim is S tier matchup to me. A lot of people don't like it, but I think it's very easy. In the same way as Gwen, Diana, he's very predictable in his pathing. You can evade him. On the buffs, he doesn't run flash, which makes him pretty easy to kill. And also if you stay even or at least up in items in the early game, you can constantly 1v1 him and bully him, and he doesn't like to get CC down in the same way as Lillia, right? He likes to kite, go back and forth, try to really like do damage over time. But if you can just CC and burst him, it's very difficult for him to play. So I like to play like Eclipse, Collector, Essence Reaver, Lord Dominic's or Black Cleaver, this kind of build, and just burst him down really. So in the same way here, you don't want to just let him full clear, do a gank, full clear, do another gank at the end of this clear. You're just gonna fall behind. Try to accelerate the game, try to locate him, try to bully him, isolate him. Be careful of fighting him when he has Q stacked up. If he's like on the first clear, if he full clears, and then he's like hitting the Scuttle Crab with his Qs. His Q is stacked up, he's level 4, you're level 4. You're actually not gonna necessarily beat him unless you get a like fully charged Q. You can maybe beat him, but it's actually quite difficult. He has more sustained damage in this at this point in level 4, so be careful of that. But other than that, it's a pretty free matchup. Ivern, I think it's even. Is quite annoying. He can really like shut down a lot of your ganks in the early game. He has a lot of shield power. You can build Serpent's Fang if you play Lethality, which is pretty good. But what you need to be really careful of is cheese invades, obviously. Don't panic. Don't go for like desperate counter invades when you don't have prio and this kind of stuff. Try to take objectives, and you can easily just engage on him a lot to just shut him down. But yeah, it's pretty even. Try to get a read on him, and try to invade him really, because he likes to. If he uses time to like take the get the charge on the camp, and then you take it before he gets to it, he's wasting a lot of time. So and he falls kind of behind. So that's a great option. And also, it's kind of a very snowbally matchup. If your team is behind, you can just run over them. But yeah, at the other end, it's very difficult if they're behind, because then they're just going to be too tanky with the shields. You don't really have the damage. It's hard to make picks and this kind of stuff. So, okay. Jarvan. Here, it's pretty much whoever lands the combo wins. If he can EQ onto you and you get CC'd, he is going to be able to win the 1v1, at least in the early game. But if you can land a full charge Q and hit to him, you're going to win easily. That's pretty much how it goes. I like this matchup. It's pretty free. You farm faster, you scale better, you do objectives better, and a team fight is kind of even, but usually you get stronger over time. So later into the game, you're going to be stronger. You're just going to have to try to track him early game in the same regard as Elise, pretty much. Try to not let him run away with the game. Try to neutralize him. Try to ward his raptors, this kind of stuff. He likes to go for like 3 camps into mid, top, bot. He can do whatever. That's pretty much all you have to do. Get the game to even at 15 minutes, and you're going to be able to win team fights. Or 1v1 the whole game, pretty much. Jax. I think this is a B tier. You farm faster, which is a great advantage. You're going to be able to bully him in that regard, just get more resources in the early game. In the 1v1, always either use your Q to knock him back when he's going to use the counter strike onto you, so just kite the counter strike, try to knock him late when he's about to use a stun, so you can just knock him, kite out as a stun, and then go back and fight him. You're going to be able to win the 1v1. You do beat him at like even items, even Eclipse into Triforce. If he doesn't have Tab Ice, you actually win that 1v1 if you can get the Q onto him. But if he has Tab Ice, he's going to be too tanky and have too much damage over time, so you're going to lose that one. Other than that, it's pretty good. If you have some Mercs, you win. Lucidity bits, you win. This kind of stuff. Also, you can use your ultimate to buffer the CC of the counter-strike. So you're just really playing around that counter-strike, and you're going to be able to win a lot of those fights. Karthus. I think it's a bit difficult. It's fine. You can kind of pick him off and kill him in the same regard as Fiddlesticks, but the problem with Karthus is a lot of them run exhaust, which makes it very difficult to 1v1 him. What you can do against him is you can do Maw, which is great, and you can also try to isolate him, fight him 1v1. You can go lethality and go Maw, but you can also go bruiser build and then build locket for your team at like a 3rd or 4th item. It can be really great counter, and you're gonna shut down a lot of his power with that. Kayn. I don't have both for some reason here, both pictures, but blue Kayn I would put in A tier. I think it's a good matchup. You win the 1v1 pretty much the whole game. He's gonna use like Airy or First Strike, this kind of stuff, and he's gonna be very weak in the 1v1 in the early game. You can also just try to CC, shut him down. He doesn't have any CC against you, which is great. So that's a pretty easy matchup. Be careful of like cheese raptor starts on your raptor starts from Kayn. He can evade your level 1, do your raptors, and then E over the wall, smite the red buff from you. It's going to be very annoying. That kind of stuff. You can also invade your wolves level 1, so try to just put a ward on your own raptors to protect them, or try to like wait for a long time before you move to your red buff. Rhaast, on the other hand, is a pretty difficult matchup, so that's who I'm gonna put here. It's more played at the moment. It's a pretty hard matchup. He has the knock up, which is very annoying. It's difficult to go into him, and it's actually, unless you can actually one-shot him, it's pretty annoying, because you can via slaughter burst, right? But he just neglected with his ultimate, and he heals back up. So that's pretty annoying. Try to play the 1v1 the same way you play against Ekko, with not using your R until you know you can actually one-shot him before he gets it off with the CC chain. Kha'Zix. Skill matchup in my opinion, it's very snowbally, especially if you're building lethality. If you both go assassin, it's like whoever is slightly ahead is like stomping the matchup pretty much. Be careful of his level 6, then he's very strong with like Dirk or Buildlizer or something like this. In the early game you do win. You can try to invade him. He's clearing, his first clear is actually very slow. So you can try to really bully him there. If you use your ultimate on him before he gets off his stealth, you're actually gonna reveal him and follow him anyways, which is really good for your team. So try to ultimate team fights. It's actually very good. He's not gonna be able to do a lot, and he can't escape either, which is really good. So you can like R him, and if he uses his ultimate himself, it doesn't matter, and then you can just queue him into your team. It's gonna be able to one-shot him quite easily. So, Kindred. Pretty annoying champion, but I think you do have a lot of counterplay. You can either use your ultimate to, at the end of her ultimate, to win the 1v1 or the team fight, but you can also try to just one-shot her and before stop her from getting off her ultimate in the first place. I like to go lethality in this build, but you can easily go Bruiser, Tab Ice, Frozen Heart, and being very strong in team fights on that way. Be very careful of her invades. Try to play around the marks as best as you can. She do be pretty annoying, but when you get your level 6, it's going to be a lot easier. Tab Ice is very strong into her. That's pretty much what I can recommend doing. So, Xin. It's pretty even matchup to me. You're pretty even in the 1v1. It's pretty much whoever is ahead or whoever plays better. He has better early game than you. Not necessarily in the 1v1. Actually, it's not that strong in the 1v1 in the early game. You have the Q to stop his Q engage onto you or some of your teammates. You can use your ultimate to buffer the CC from his ultimate. From the Dragon's Rage, you can just ult and buffer the CC and then you stay on him. It's actually going to be very good. So just try to track him early game. Try to help your team to survive. Play for team fights, play for objectives, because then you force both teams to group more. And that's going to be beneficial for you. Just catching my breath. Not used to talking this much, but let's keep going, pushing through. Lillia, watch out for the level 1 Raptors invade. That's going to be very annoying. She can do the same thing as Kayn. That can be really like game losing pretty much. Try to buffer the CC from her sleep with your ultimate. That can be really great, so you don't get bursted and CC'd in that way. You also counter her in the way that you can really lock her down, as I talked about earlier with Hecarim and Lillia. You can CC them and lock her down, which is pretty much their weakness. You also have like Kinnick Rukern, Maw, which is pretty good on counters. Try to not let her AFK farm in the same way as Hecarim. You play the matchups very similar pretty much, so that's pretty much how you approach it. You can go for multiple builds, but I like to go more damage heavy because she has percentage damage anyway. So, and also if you don't have enough damage, she's just gonna win the extended fights with kiting and stuff. So I like to go pretty damage heavy. You can go like Eclipse, Triforce, Black Cleaver, more Bruiser, but I like to lean on the damage side or the assassin side. So Maokai. Yeah, about Lillia, she hates doing dragons, so you can probably get those for free, but don't let her take the grubs too free. She has a lot of AoE damage, she takes those easily, and she likes to get the XP and the gold, so try not to give those for free if you have the team to follow it up. If you can't take it, don't take it, trade the dragon, and it's totally fine. Maokai. You do win the 1v1 very easily, but he's extremely annoying because he pretty much counters anything you do. He can stop your Q with both his Q and the W. He has the R to counter your engage. If you go on some of the carry, it's just gonna R your whole team and hold them back so they can't follow up. It's pretty annoying in every way. You do clears faster, and you can try to really invade him and bully him 1v1. Try to try to really pressure him. Even if you can't kill him, you can bully him out of the jungle, and then you can go for your gank. So you can try to like shut him down so he can't do stuff, and then you can have way more pressure in the early game and try to win in that way. Because if you're from even ground, even team fights, this kind of stuff, it's gonna have more value pretty much. So, and also try to be on objectives very early, because he has the saplings set up, and if he has control over an area, it's very difficult to take it back. So try to be early on objectives, ping for your team a minute early on dragons and this kind of stuff. Must E. Don't ult him, so you can just counter strike, of course. You probably know this. It's like even or a good one. I probably put it even. You do kill you quite easily, but so can you. Don't build bruiser and tank, in my opinion, in this matchup unless your team really needs it, because what most of you hate more than anything is CC and its burst. So if you go lethality or like some sort of damage heavy vibe build, you have both of those, so you can easily win the 1v1. Be really careful of where you can exit on his alpha strike when you want to follow up with the Q. You also have the knock up to his meditate, which is really good. And yeah, pretty much try to hold your abilities until he uses alpha strike is what I can recommend. So Mordekaiser is actually quite difficult to punish. He farms fast, he scales up really fast. It's quite annoying 1v1 when he has the passive stacked, which he does in the jungle at all times, which is pretty difficult to fight. It's very difficult to invade. He's very safe. When he gets his ultimate, he probably wins any 1v1 unless you play it very smart and very well mechanically. You can use your ultimate to counter his ultimate, actually, because you're unstoppable, and you're just going to cancel it altogether, and it's going to go on CC. That's so try to look out for the animation and the sound cue. That can be a really great thing. If you're very important to shut down some of the enemy champions, for example, they have a very fed Kalista, and it's your job to really lock her down. And Mordekaiser, every team fight, he just ults you, so you can't do anything in that team fight. Build a Quicksilver Slash so that you can just quickly exit the Mordekaiser ultimate, and then you can play the team fight. Morgana, it's pretty much time to FF, I think. I'm kidding, it's fine. It's not a great matchup, everybody hates to play against this, but what you can do a lot is that you can fake your engage pretty much. So you can try to hold your Q. If you know she doesn't have Q, you can hold your Q and wait out the black shield, try to bait it out and go on another target. You can also Q one target and then instantly ult another. She's probably going to use the black lever on the one you queued, and then you can shut someone else down with the ultimate. That can be really great, so try to fake her out pretty much. And remember, you can R in the middle of your Q, which means if she throws the binding at you and you're mid Q, you can try to use your ultimate to buffer the CC, so you're unstoppable. That's a great option. You can also go Edge of Night into Morgana. That's pretty much it. She likes the full clear, as we all know. You can take objectives pretty easily. So that's pretty much it. It's a rough matchup because naturally she counters you, but you have some sort of counterplay in the mining games. Nidalee, even matchup, pretty much, I think, at least. You have she's very squishy, so you can really lock her down, but in the early game she has a lot of pressure. Try to look for counter ganks, play from the lane bushes, and when she tries to go into your team, you can actually just go out of there, hit the Q and one-shot her because she's very squishy, right? That's something you can do. I like to play lethality, but you can pretty much do anything in this matchup, I think. Be careful of the level 1 invade. Don't get poked down by the spears and let her take your red buff and this kind of stuff. That's going to be very annoying. She likes to focus on ganks and farm, and she likes to counter jungle a lot, but which means she doesn't like to take the objectives unless she has the team. She has a very hard time taking them, and she spends a lot of time on it. And the thing about Nidalee is she loves high tempo, and taking objectives to her doesn't make a lot of sense. You can take those for free, so even though they get ahead, maybe in gold, XP, this kind of stuff, pressure, you can kind of counter it by getting the objectives and delay the game in that way. So if you secured up a couple of dragons, you got a couple of grubs, it's going to be harder for them to accelerate the game. And that means you're going to come into the late game earlier, and in teamfight she is very weak, so try to play for objectives to kind of shut down what she tries to do in the early game. Nocturne, another very difficult matchup. It's pretty doomed. You can't really win 1v1. Try to use your smite when you try to Q him or ult him, because then you can maybe get the spell shield. That's pretty much what you can do. Be very careful about engaging onto him, because you're probably not going to be able to kill him, and you can just run it down with Q and the fear and stuff, so that's very difficult. Try to cover your lanes in the mid and late game. Try to shadow them, so when Nocturne tries to engage on your side lanes, you have a Jace in the high lane that's doing great. Try to really cover him, so when they try to engage on him and make pick with Nocturne, you can counter it, play the 2v2, this kind of stuff. That's pretty much what I like to do. Nunu, it's pretty much even. I think it's fine. Try to deep ward against him and try to really track him early game, because as we all know, he has very annoying and great ganks. So try to deep ward, try to really bully him in the same way I like to bully Maokai. Try to really push him out of the jungle, try to isolate him so he can't take over the game. So if you farm, you try to do stuff, and he farms and he does his own stuff, his ganks are going to be more effective most of the time. Depending on team comps, of course, but that's going to be the case. So it's better to try to shut him down and not do too much stuff yourself, because his ganks are more effective, pretty much. Olaf, he's not been played in the jungle in a long time, but you never know when Riot's going to give him like 400% damage on his Q. Yeah. If he does, it's going to be a hard matchup. What you can do, you can run Phase Rush, so that when you go into him, you can kite out his ultimate with Phase Rush. I like to go Swiftest as well, because it's great against his Q, and try to kite him out, because you have to kite it out. You can go in him and kind of bump him, burst him, but then you have to kite out his ultimate, because you're never going to be able to kill him if you can't CC him. That's what I like to do. And there's a small interaction where if you're going to ult him surprisingly and he doesn't get his ult off before you're able to grab him, he's actually going to be knocked up for a longer time, and he's not going to be able to break the CC. Which can be really great actually, and then you can ult him, he's going to be knocked up for a very long time, and you can hit him down, or just then he uses his ultimate, and then you can just kite it, fall back, and then you go back in when his ultimate is down. That's what you can do against it, pretty much. Poppy, it's not great. Not great. We don't like Poppy players. What I like to do is really, when I try to Q onto Poppy, try to hold your Q for a very long time. She's going to use her W, and then you can wait it out and then engage when it falls down, because you're able to hold it for so long with Vi. Many people are very surprised. You can at least do it the first time. After that, it's going to be difficult, because then she knows it. But you can also use your ultimate to just ult. Don't engage with your Q, hold your Q and just ult on target to kind of ignore the W. That's pretty much what you can do. You can also buffer her ultimate CC with yours, which is really great, and try to stay away from the walls, of course, to not get CC'd. That's pretty much it. Kiana, skill matchup or slightly favored for you. I'm gonna put it in the even B tier. It's the reason I do it, because you have counterplay. She's very weak in the early game. She clears very slow, and you can really have a lot of pressure in the early game, both onto her and her team, because she's not going to be able to do a lot, and she hates to take objectives. She can't really take those. You can take those for free a lot of the time as well. And if you alter in the same way as Kha'Zix, you reveal her. Even if she uses the brush, she's going to be you're still going to be able to lock her down. But in the same way, she has that stealth, which is very annoying for 5 because you can't really follow it with any damage. You can't use auto attacks. It's very difficult to hit the Q because she has a lot of dashes and this kind of stuff. So that's why it's pretty difficult. I love. You can both go lethality, but I like to go bruiser easier because she usually has to jump on you and like advantage on engages. And then if you're more tanky, you can just use your ultimate and kind of be an engage instead of an assassin, because it's going to be difficult because you can't use your Q and your or auto attacks that much. Rammus. You would think it's good, but to me it doesn't feel that great, and the win rate isn't great either. What you can do is you can do Black Cleaver, and with your W and Black Cleaver you're going to be able to shred his armor. That's better than Lord Dominic's, because shredding his armor also means, so first of all, your team does more damage, and also his damage comes from armor. So if you reduce his armor, he's going to do less damage. That's pretty much it. So that's great. Try to track him early game. He has annoying ganks with rolling the taunt. And yeah, it's pretty rough. In the same way I like to do against Amumu. When he engages onto your team, I like to engage onto his follow-up, so that he's kind of stuck alone, you're stuck alone, but hopefully your team can win it. And yeah, try to track him early game, bully him in the early game. It's going to be quite useless there, but it gets very difficult later on. Rek'Zai, hard matchup, but not unwinnable. Be very careful of using your Q on him, because his knockup can actually just cancel it, and then you're kind of stuck and he can burst you down. He has more early game pressure. I like to ward his Raptors level 1 at like 1 minute or 1 minute and 5 seconds, because he likes to do 3 camps a lot, either into mid, top, bot, he can do whatever. So that's what I like to do, because if you do survive the early game, he falls off very hard, and especially in team fights later on. So try to really shut down his early game. Don't let him bully your team too much. And when you do counter ganks, make sure to stand completely still, because unless he's gonna see you with his tracker. So just charge your Q and stand completely still, and then you can come from Fog of War is what I like to do. Rengar, skill matchup to me. It's pretty difficult to go lethality, because he usually gets the jump on you, and if you both have a lot of damage, he's going to be able to one-shot you before you can do anything, especially when he goes like Edge of Night. It's going to be too difficult. So Bruiser is usually better. The same way he likes to attack side lanes in the late game. Try to shadow your team in the same way as Nocturne, and try to really lock her down, CC him in team fights. Make sure to not ult him when he has fully stacked full stacks, because then he can just use W to break the CC, which is pretty annoying. He also likes to focus on kills and farm like Nidalee, so you can get objectives quite free. He likes to ignore those, because he likes tempo, he likes gold and not objectives. Sejuani, I really recommend going Bruiser. Everybody knows I like to go lethality or like crit Vi, but in this matchup it's quite difficult. She has a lot of CC like Amumu, a lot of lockdown, a lot of disruption, and also you're never going to be able to kill her with lethality and this kind of stuff. But you do beat her 1v1 if you have Conqueror and building more of a Bruiser style. You're going to be stronger. She clears quite slow, and you can be really strong in that area. And make sure to use your ultimate as some sort of buffer, or like to counter the CC, because if not, you're just going to get changes shield and died in many fights. And also be careful of fighting her if she has a lot of melees on her team, because if she has a Jack's top or a Nekton, it's going to be very difficult to win that 2v2, regardless whoever you have on your team, or a 3v3 with Yoni and this kind of stuff. It's pretty difficult to play, so try to play more for your bot lane against Sejuani is what I like to do, but It depends on the game, of course. Shaco. Same way against Rek'Zai, I like to ward his Raptors level 3 because he loves 3 camping, everybody knows that. But even though everybody knows it, your damn lane still lose or die to it, doesn't matter. You're gonna have to do your job to make sure they survive. In team fights, you're gonna be stronger. Late game, you're gonna be better. You can pretty much do any build. Small tricks to like reveal him is that your W stacks stay on him after he uses his ultimate. So if you have a 1 stack or 2 stack on him, his clone's not gonna have those. And even though if you don't have any stacks, but if you have used your Proctor W, you're gonna see the small armor shred icon actually, which can be a great reveal. And also if you ult him and he doesn't have his ultimate, if you use his Q to escape, same way as Kha'Zix and the other stealth champions, you're just gonna see him and reveal him and follow up. So that's really good. If you know he doesn't have ultimate or he has already used it, you can ult him and it's gonna be very easy to lock him down. Shyvana, it's a good matchup. Not amazing, but it's good. She's extremely useless without her ultimate. Even if that's before level 6 or after, if she doesn't have ultimate, that's pretty much free. She likes to just scale, full clear, take dragons, take objectives, and just take over the game later. If you can see if she doesn't have rage, you can actually just engage on her team because she's going to be completely useless. I'm not saying you always have to do it, but it's very strong to do so because, yeah, she's all about that ultimate. And don't let her take free dragons in the early game unless you're forced to give them away. If enemy mid and bot has Briar, you can't really do anything about it. Then you just play the opposite side of the map. But most of the time you don't want to give those away for free. She's going to try to sneak those. So be aware of that. Vi is also great at taking those. So think about it. Skarner is a difficult matchup. He has a lot of CC. I don't like to play lethality into it because then he can too easily just ult you and you're just gonna get one shot and you're gonna have 0 impact in the game. You can try to ignore him with lethality if he's very strong into the rest of the team, but I like to go bruiser and be a bit more tanky. So that's pretty much it. If he has the area, you don't win the 1v1, but if he doesn't, he's passive, then you do win 1v1. So build bruiser, try to counter the CC with your ultimate to try and buffer, build a bit more tanky. Talia. It's hard / horrible matchup. I don't like it. You can engage on her with your ultimate if you're building more tanky. If you don't, you're just gonna get one shot by your E. It's very difficult to engage on her with your Q. You can do QR and go over it if you have built like Koenig Rukern or you are more tanky. But most of the time you want to try to come from Fog of War and try to engage on her and try to like camp bushes. I like to play lethality into her. You're just gonna have to play very different and you can't come from vision into her. You have to come from a bush or Fog of War over a wall, this kind of stuff. Then you can really one-shot her, but if not, it's pretty difficult. Talon. Okay, we're getting there. It's not too many left. Talon, it's pretty hard to build lethality in this matchup as well, because in the same way as Rengar, he usually has the jump on you, which makes it so you can just get one shot without you getting anything done into him. He likes to build Edge of Night a lot of games, so it's going to be very difficult. I like to build Bruiser in this matchup, so you can survive his burst, you can really lock him down. And that's pretty much what you should be doing. I like to focus on objectives because he's an assassin. He likes when things are split up. So if it's more objective focused, it's going to be better for your team because you can play for team fights and really grouping more. And also he doesn't like to take objectives. He can do grubs quite fine with his W, but the dragon, yeah, he doesn't like to take those very much. So you can probably get those for free. Also, if you ult him before he uses his ultimate, you reveal him the same way. That's just a small trick. Trundle, horrible. Absolutely horrible. I like to go Swifties in this matchup to counter this pillar and try to kite him because, yeah, you pretty much play it the same way you play against Olaf. I like to go face rush into Trundle, especially if I'm playing like competitive. But if I in solo queue, I still go a lot of damage builds with Halo Blades. It's fine. But yeah, you can go on him, but you have to kite him, and that's what face rush allows you to do. If he uses his ultimate, it's going to be very difficult, but you can try to one-shot him before he gets his ultimate off. Actually, it can be very squishy and build a lot of damage in many cases. So that's what you can do. Make sure you don't hold your Q too long so he just cancel you with his pillar. That's going to be very annoying. You're just going to be stuck and you're going to get run down with no Q, no damage or anything. So, do we do Udyr? It's the ugly Udyr. I'm going to swap those. So, Udyr. It's a 8-tier matchup, I think. He likes to full clear and take objectives, but so can you, and you're going to be stronger and 2v2s, 3v3s, because you have more single target damage in the early game and more CC. So you're stronger in that regard, but if you allow him to full clear, take objectives, get ahead in XP, it's going to be difficult. But yeah, that's what you can do. Try to accelerate the game, put the pressure on his team. He does like to take dragons on objectives, but if you can get your lanes ahead, it's going to be very difficult for him to play, because if you focus on those, you can have Briar on a lot of lanes, and then he's just stuck AFK farming, and he has horrible ganks, and you can't really protect his lane, so that's how you can get free wins. Viego, be careful that he can use C tier, I think. Careful that he can buffer your CC from ultimate with his ultimate, and your ultimate is way more valuable. He can get resets of his, and also yours has a way longer cooldown, so be very careful of that. I don't enjoy this matchup a whole lot. You have great counter ganks. If you see him using his E, you can like easily detect it and get ready and really burst people down when they try to go on your team, but it's not a great 1v1. You usually lose that at many points in the game. He has a lot of percentage damage, so I like to go more burst because he's a reset champion in the same way as Masi, so I like to go a lot of damage because then you can just one-shot him before he can take over a team fight. So you can just lock him down, one-shot, and that's going to be a free team fight. Volibear, he is very strong in the early game. You're never going to win that before or later. More like 2 items, maybe you win, or if you're ahead. Try to really predict if he's trying to dive so you can protect those, because his dives are very strong when he gets his ultimate. And yeah, if you get past 15 minutes, he's falling off very quickly, and you're going to be a lot stronger. And also, he doesn't clear that fast this season, you clear much faster. So that's going to be pretty good. So try to track him early game, protect your team, and that's going to be enough to win many games. Warwick, he also has a pretty bad clear, especially a full clear on the AoE camps. He can do it fine, but it's not great. Try to counter his CC from the fear with your ultimate, so you can really buffer that. Try to time it in the same way as Jax's Counter-Strike. That's going to be really great. Try not to use all your burst if he has activated his E, because he's just going to reduce it all, and you have a long cooldown, so try to hold that most of your damage when he's using his E, and then you can really make an impact after. Also, a small trick is that if he actually engages on you, it doesn't make sense because he's unstoppable, but your Q actually knocks him out of his ultimate. So you can just Q in his direction when he's trying to ult on you, and you're just going to knock him off and you can run away. So you can also use your ult in that same way if he doesn't have your Q off cooldown. So you have some counters there, which is why I like the matchup. Xin Zhao, S tier matchup. I think this is really free. You pretty much do what he does, but better. I think you clear faster. You beat him 1v1 a lot of the time if you can land your Q and he doesn't have any way of dodging it. You can also buffer his Q knock-up very easily with your ultimate because you can just time it. You know, just make sure to pay attention to which auto is going to knock you up. That's going to be very free. So just out-tempo him is clearing quite slow. His ganks are a lot weaker this season. So yeah, I like this matchup. You can build whatever into him pretty much. And yeah, Frost Arch is obviously very good at him. He likes attack speed. Zac, I put it in B tier. I think it's even. You both have counterplay. He has a lot of CC and disruption into you, but you have the same against him, which he doesn't like. You can use your Q to stop his E engages. So if you have like really fat carries, instead of playing for the enemy backline, you can really just try to protect your own. So if you sit on your team and your backline, you can just be ready for his E and you can just knock him out with your Q or grab him with the ultimate, and that's going to be really great because yeah, he really needs to hit that E if he's going to have a high value in team fights. Also, you can really bully him early game. You heavily beat him 1v1, try to pick up the blob so he doesn't get all the healing, and you're going to be a lot stronger. Also, he has a very hard time taking dragons, so you can probably get those for free. Said, easily S tier. Just make sure to play around the shadows in a smart way. Try to hold your ultimate or your Q. Try to bait out his ultimate if you can. Try to charge your Q a long time and then you can use it. You can build pretty much anything. Bruiser, you're going to be too tanky for him to burst you. And if you build lethality, you can probably easily kill him because, yeah, you just have that CC, which he doesn't, which makes it much easier for you to get off your damage than he to get off his. And he doesn't really have any great, like, engage tools in the same way as Rengar and Talon does. And a small tip also is that he gets very low on his clears, especially in his first 2 clears. He gets very low, so you can easily kill him when he's full clearing. Wukong, yeah, this matchup sucks. We talked about it earlier. It's not great. He has the knockups to stop your Q, so you can never pretty much Q on him. And even before level 6, he has the W, so he can just use the clone to block your Q actually, which is pretty annoying. But yeah, you can see which is the clone in the same way as Shaco with your W stacks. And also, most of the time you want to engage on him with your ultimate and not your Q, because that means you're going to ignore the knockup, and also if he uses W, you're just going to follow him and see which is which. So that's pretty much what you can do. You also clear a lot faster, which is pretty great. Pantheon, even, you clear faster, use that to your advantage, either full clear and you can get off a gank faster than him, or you just get more resources over time, you take objectives much better than him. Try to use your Q to stop his W stun, so you can just kind of knock each other, and that's going to be better for you because you have a shorter cooldown. Also try to, if he doesn't have his stun, you can actually just charge Q, walk into him and just bait out his E. Most of the time he's actually going to use his E, which is great, and then you can just follow up after and then burst him down. Jax, we talked about Jax. Then it's Silas. Easy matchup. He clears very slow. He gets very low. You should invade him. Try to really like shut him down. The only way he can really snowball in the jungle is if he takes a couple of camps, he gets level 3 or even level 2 and he goes for a gank, he gets a couple of kills. That's really how he gets ahead. But if you can just try to 1v1 him, try to really shadow him and try to follow him around, you can pretty much bully him and stop him from getting ahead in the game. And if he doesn't, he's just going to fall behind because he clears way too slow if he doesn't get those early items. Also, he has no chance of taking your objectives, so you can take those for free. Rumble, even matchup in my opinion. When he's chasing you with his flame spear, you can use your Q to like knock him, and you're actually going to flip him around. So when he's chasing you, rather than using Q to escape, many times you can just Q him and then turn around and then cut him out in that way, and then you can go back in when he doesn't have his Q. And be very careful of engaging on him if he has like 50% or more heat, because if you go on him, then he's actually just going to turn on you and one-shot you, and that's yeah, that's pretty rough. You can build more, and that does a lot of work against him. He really relies on that burst damage, and if it doesn't one-shot you, you're gonna win the 1v1. He also likes to full clear a lot, and on the first clear he gets a bit low, actually. Neeko, I don't like this matchup. It's pretty difficult. Luckily, she's fallen a bit out of the meta this season in the jungle, and yeah, you can, in the same way, try to look for your W stacks when she's using clone. Try to engage with your ultimate so she can't just W and block your Q. That's really great, and make sure to count minions. And be very careful of engaging into her team if you have no vision on her, because her counter engage is actually very strong. She's kind of similar to Amumu in that regard. So you can also use your ultimate to buffer her ultimate from the CC, and you're gonna win pretty much any 1v1 if you're able to stick on her and try to buffer her CC. Rel, I think it's a B matchup. You win 1v1 the whole game, which is really important. So she has good ganks, she has great team fights, but if you can try to isolate her, bully her 1v1, you usually want to build Bruiser, because it's very difficult to play lethality, because she has so much CC, so much like area control, so it's difficult to get into her backlines and try to one-shot those. She has great protection. So I like to build Bruiser and Conquer, then you're gonna win the 1v1. You don't really do all that much if you play lethality into her either. So it's difficult to kill her and catch her off. So I like to build Bruiser, Black Cleaver, and this kind of stuff, and play for the team fights. You can do that. You can also, in many team fights, if you have a fed carry, don't be like fixated on shutting down the enemy ADC or that kind of stuff. If they're not fed, if you have a fed ADC, just maybe your job is just to actually CC and ultimate the Rel if she's a threat to your backline. A lot of people don't get like very stuck in the mindset of I need to use my ultimate on assassins or ADCs or Theras and this kind of stuff. Many times just lock down the enemy threat, which can be Rel. The CC can be the thing that kills your backline, so think about that. Last, I wasn't going to do Zyra, but she's kind of creeping back into the meta actually, and it's a pretty difficult matchup. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but it's not great. It's pretty hard. She likes to get engaged on like in a team fight, because then she has a lot of the plant setup, the ult, a lot of CC, and she kind of shuts you down. Kind of similar to Brand in that regard. She just throws out all her damage, and it's gonna do a lot of stuff. But in the same way, you can catch her. It's a bit more difficult, but you can do that. And she has very long cooldowns in the early game. Make sure to play around that. I like to build more tanky, because that stops a lot of her poke. Kayn Rek'Zai, for example, stops a lot of that like small plant poke with Liandry's, which is really great. So that's pretty much it. If I missed anyone, please let me know. To wrap it up, I just want to say I'm grateful really to all of you who have watched the video and watched earlier ones. I think it's been really great and blown me away by all the positive comments. All of you have subscribed. I think it's great. It's making me really motivated to keep going and make great content for you guys. That's why I do it. I hope you find it useful. Thank you.